y'all to the VRNation Station. We're diving deep into vacation.
Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the VRNation Station, your podcast for the short-term rental industry. A little bit raw, but man, we got some great people that come on this show. First, I'd like to thank everybody who's been listening. If you're a supporter, please throw some comments at me and give me some feedback. Anything is actually appreciated so much. If you're new to the podcast, please like, follow. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on YouTube as well. We're real deal now. It's something else. So I'm Jamie Hansen. I am the facilitator of the podcast. I originate from the state of Wisconsin, so you'll hear all sorts of Wisconsinese coming out of my mouth, which is fun for some people, apparently. So Emily enjoys it. My guest today is Emily Tunggala, which is funny. Emily and I, when we were trading emails, completely forgot that we had an entire full conversation at the VRNation conference, which is terrific because I still remember the conversation at that point. But then I just hadn't put the X's and O's together. So maybe talk a little bit about how you got in, welcome. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about end up in the short-term rental industry.
Oh man. Okay. First of all, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited. This is fun to see you again. Yes. So I think I would say my background is not unique in that nobody tries to become a property manager or get into this industry. I feel like a lot of people kind of fall into this by accident, which is part of what makes it so cool and so colorful. I actually went to college for photography, haven't used that a day in my life, but then found myself working in tech. The way that I actually ended up at Hospitable was I bought a rental property and I needed a property management system. So I actually came to know Hospitable first as a customer, which is really not unique for members of our team. We have a huge percentage of our team that actually started out as customers. And if they weren't customers, they're hosts themselves, maybe doing it without a property management system to start. And I think I was literally using Hospitable one day when I saw a little bubble pop up and say they were hiring. And I was like, that is exactly what I do. And I was working, I know it's weird. I was working in a space that was fine, but it just wasn't something I was passionate about. And I was just really itching to build something that I could actually use. And I've been there ever since. It's been really fun.
So tell us a little bit about your role as a product manager. I think I get it, but I don't know a lot of folks if they understand what a product manager is responsible for from a tech.
Yeah. I mean, there's not really a school for product managers, not really anyways. It's kind of a newer thing, but I feel like a product manager's job is to really just be a professional listener. I spend a lot of my time talking to our customers and just really digging deep into things that are causing them pain. And our goal is to really understand what they're struggling with and then build tools to just take that pain away. So I think that's one of the really fun reasons for me having been a host before and then working at Hospitable is yes, I get to hear other hosts and our customers' pains, but more often than not, I've also experienced those pains.
Sure.
And so it's a really cool, fun, unique place to be. So yeah, I spend a lot of time on calls with our customers, just digging into what it is they do every day, what they're spending an absurd amount of time on, things that we can help automate and take off their plate.
Awesome. And the way that I always explain product management to people when I try to lay it out is just simply, you are the CEO/owner of that product, right? So you are essentially working back with your customers to understand what enhancements are critical for them. What is, what's not critical, what works, what doesn't work, what's outdated, where's the future lie? You're really laying the tracks for the future state of that product line. And I think it's really interesting to see that, because it's one of those where a lot of people are they blame the faceless company, oh, company, product, blah, 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 blah. And it's well, no, there are people responsible for it. And if you have a conversation with those people, they're going to listen, because that's the next thing that comes along the line. So it's really interesting that was the case. I didn't know that when we were talking in Austin. I didn't know that you were the product manager for Hospitable. So the interesting part about Hospitable that I found, now mind you, so as people who've listened to me talk before, they understand that I work with a company called Capino, and we are a property manager in Idaho. So we're in Eastern Idaho, Western Wyoming. We do have some locations around the country as well. But effectively, we've been in the industry since 2008. Not me. I'm still, I think I was referred to as a baby in the industry I believe that was a term that was used in reference to me, which I thought was very funny, very heartwarming. I've been in the industry for like 3 years, 4 years now. But the reality is that, it's like when I think of I'm a 60 property manager. That's a give or take. Obviously, we're usually between 60 and 70. But it's one of those where I look at it and I go, I know what we've done to get where we are. But when I think of like, hey, I'm a smaller, just getting into the industry. I've maybe got one property, two property, three property. Like, what is it that you guys have created at Hospitable to really help that individual? Because we have quite a few, I think, listening to the.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good, interesting question. So like I think it's clear that independent host or solo host or, people who are like managing their own property that they own, or they might be like really small property managers just managing like a couple. Several years ago there were not many of them, if you will, but now like those independent hosts are not a niche anymore. They really are the majority. I think the last numbers I saw were like 70% of Airbnb hosts, so that's like over 3.5 million people, have one property.
Right.
So that's like their property oftentimes, right? And historically, those hosts didn't have access to the same tools that a professional management company like your company would have had access to because they're either priced out or because they have to get in an annual contract and pay $5,000 for onboarding or whatever it may
Right.
be,
Or they have
right?
a day job and they just don't have the time to sit there and research and figure out what they need to get involved in.
Totally. And I discovered this myself personally too. So like when I bought my property, I was listening to all the podcasts and stuff, and the knowledge that I picked up was like I need dynamic pricing. That's the first thing I need to do, right? So I was like, cool, I'll go to this dynamic pricing provider, this one and figure out who I'm going to use. And I quickly learned I'm not allowed to use them unless I have a property management system, where that was
Right.
the case 3 years ago. Now, it's less the case today because tech is kind of like the great equalizer now. Like that now they're realizing that these independent hosts are not the niche, they're the majority, and they're going to serve these people who are not necessarily in a position to get a property management system yet, because a lot of them in the market are serving huge property management companies.
Right.
Hospitable is our kind of bread and butter is the small independent host. We serve the range, right? But yeah, that's just kind of interesting to see that like when I was starting as a host, I could not get a dynamic pricing software. And now I would be able to without having a PMS. So everything is really starting to change.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's funny. I had a couple guests on that were smaller independents, right? Because, I stepped into the world of full tech. So for me, like, how do you guys do this? How do you spend the time? And it's been a real learning experience for me as I work back with some of the like solopreneurs that are out there working with their own properties, right? Now, granted, I see two sides of the coin where there's a huge benefit that I think that the solopreneur, the person who's the solo DIY, rent by owner, the fact that it is their property, there's so much more that they bring to the table because it's theirs, it's their passion, it's their love, right? And a guest can sense, they can feel that, they understand that, versus a name of a company that they're like, well, it's just some company, some corporation. Like, wow, the customer effects are very different as far as what their expectations are. But most importantly, what I thought was interesting, kind of to your point, scalability, right? So one of the things that it's great. I have a friend of mine, he's got his own property up north of Madison here, and he's been, and he has his son doing it. He's like, wow, so my son's my property manager. I know his son, a great kid, but not necessarily all over things. So I went up and I checked the property out, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I can't take this on. Like, I'll be dealing with customer phone calls. Well, then I go on to his Airbnb and he's got 5 stars, like 85 reviews, and every single
Mhm.
review lists the son, his name, Corey, and the fact that everybody thinks that Corey is the greatest guy. And the 5-star
Yep.
reviews. I'm like, holy smokes. So as we were talking, he's like, well, he wants to expand it. He wants to have more property. He wants to build more properties. And the question is like, how do you scale? How does somebody like Corey scale without like a team of people behind him? Like, there's no way he's going to put that together. So like, what do you say like to somebody like that? Like, what are the top things they need to automate first if they want to really, become an effective property manager without hiring the staff that would be there to support it.
Yeah, that's such a funny story that you mentioned. I actually had a call with a customer, and I always peek in their accounts beforehand just to get a sense of like where they're at in their business. And this particular customer had 30 something properties, so they were pretty large and they were in several cities. And when they popped up on the Zoom call with me, it was like a 16-year-old. And I was like, "What?" I was shocked. Yeah, your friend's son is not the only one doing this, and I think it's amazing that young people are figuring out how they can get this financial independence like really early on and not kind of fall into the grind that
Yeah,
many of the rest.
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, you met Haley. I think you actually were maybe you went to her class in Austin. And I mean, I think she was 22, 21, 22. I
Yeah,
don't know. She's like younger than one. Like I have kids older than her. And
yeah,
she's got, I think it was like 25 units in Florida, and she started this whole thing on her own, which I was
yeah.
impressed. I was so seriously impressed. But I
And
mean,
there's
when
not
we
a
go back to the
lot.
concept of that automation, like what do you suggest first, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
first
there's not
thing
a
to
lot of industries you can do that in. And this might not be a popular answer,
sure.
but I actually usually recommend, like, not overthinking it too much. I've had so many calls with customers, and I'm like, "Well, I don't see a property in your account." And they're like, "Oh, I haven't listed it yet. I need to get all my ducks in a row." And you just risk losing the opportunity. You're not getting bookings in that time while you're sitting there thinking about it, right? So, and this also just goes back to my job, right? As a product manager, like one of the first things you learn is that you just need to get something out there and then you iterate so that you know that you're working on the right things. And the very same thing is true of hosting. So I would recommend against like trying to map out every possible scenario you might find yourself in and like spending all this time setting up all this automation before you've ever gone live. I mean, that can take days, weeks, and almost always you're going to guess wrong about what you actually need. I think the smartest approach is really just to launch, get your listing live. And then the moment you find yourself doing something for the second time, you sit down, you take 5 minutes and you automate it. So that should be your signal. So, for example, like if you realize your first guest asked you this question and your second guest asked you the same question, cool. Go back, set up an automated message, make sure that it's like included proactively in your check in message, or maybe like you have a guidebook you want to start setting up, like add that as a FAQ in your guidebook. The moment you get a booking and you're like, "Oh, I feel like I could have made more money on that because there's like a nearby concert." Maybe that's time to like start looking at dynamic pricing. Like, is that something you want to enable so that
Right.
you can be those prices are raised ahead of time? That way you're really, you're like focusing on the right things and not risking like building out all this process that might not be necessary for you. And then over time, I mean, give yourself a couple weeks, a couple months, you'll probably sit back and see all these like processes you've built out, all these automations just working for you. And I mean, our customers on average, I think we find they're automating like 95% of their routine tasks. So that's like automated messaging, like smart lock code creation, dynamic pricing, accounting, even. And I mean, that time really, really adds up to many, many days per month. You can end up saving yourself weeks per year where you can kind of focus on the things that are better for you to focus your time on.
Got it. Got it. No, and that makes a ton of sense. It's funny. So, I was doing a little bit of homework on Hospitable. I see the AI communication, right? Not that I'm old school, because again, I'm a baby in the industry, but when I think of like AI communication in general, right? I'm like everybody else, I got my phone just kind of hanging out here, right? And I get all these automated phone calls that are very clearly not a person. And I get not physically upset. I get emotional. I get emotionally upset about like these calls coming in. I'm like, God damn it, at least they could have had somebody pick up the phone and call me. At least, back in the day when those people used to piss you off. But when I think about it, it's like guest communication. Like, how do you overcome that feel of like the AI communication, right? Because it's tougher. It's almost to the point where I think guests maybe get wrapped around the axle with an AI response versus even an offshore response. But maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong on that. How do you guys talk through
No.
that?
I don't think you're wrong, but I do think AI has come a long way in a really, really short amount of time. I think too, like we often see like professional managers saying like, "Oh, I can do 24/7 responses," and independent hosts are like, "I can't possibly do that, right? Like I have to sleep." So I think that like AI auto replies and like AI assisted communication is an independent host opportunity to get to that point where they can, support their guests 24/7. I'll just tell a personal story because I think I felt similar to how you just described.
Sure.
So we have an AI team who built out our AI auto reply, and they were really smart. Instead of just like turning it on and it just starts responding to everything, we actually give our customers the ability to say like, don't respond to questions like this, you know. So if it's about a guest being locked out or whatever, that will need to escalate to a human because we need to basically special attention to that
Right.
delicate situation, if you will. But they also gave our customers the ability to actually attribute the message to AI if they wanted to. And so I did that first. I was like, I I really feel deeply about the way that I communicate with my guests. I want it to like match me, you know? And a lot of independent hosts feel that way. And so when I turned it on in my account, and I just did it from dinner time until the next morning so that I could be sure I had dinner with my kids and I could tuck them in and I wouldn't need to have my phone. I just had like each AI reply say, this is a message coming from my AI assistant so that you could get a quick message while I'm asleep, you know? If you still need help, I'll follow up in the morning. And that just I liked being transparent with my guest in that way. And I kept it like that for a couple of weeks. And then I go back and I look and I'm like, you know, it was pretty spot on. It uses the same tone of voice as me because it has the context of every conversation I've ever had with a guest. It knows about my property because of my property details in my account, but also
Right.
because of I've answered questions before, right? So it did such a good job that I ended up taking off that little attribution and now I take credit. So I do think there are ways to like kind of test the waters if it's something you're not super comfortable with. And I totally get it because I wasn't either, but
Yeah, it's
it does
funny because I've had a couple conversations with some of our AI friends, right? Like I've talked with, pretty much every AI company in the industry at this point, either for VRNation or with Cabino. And I'm just like, it gives me pause because I'm like, oh man, there's so many things that could go wrong. But the good point that you brought up that I didn't think about is, well, you could automate that at night and you could cut down on the amount of calls. We don't get a lot of after hours calls. I mean, we get I don't even know what the number is. It's the top of my head, but it's like maybe one or two a week. Like it's not a ton, right? And that's with 60 properties. So I'm going, oh, if there's a way that we could somehow automate that where we could reduce those even further, that might be worth something to take a look at. That's interesting. Okay. Okay. And then as far as like the energy level, the amount of time it takes for you guys to get that AI communicator up and running, like what's it usually take from a time frame perspective?
Yeah, I mean, no time. We've built it in such a way where you like turn it on and it literally just references all your conversations and has that context. You can feed it more information and we've done that in a couple of ways. If you have an existing guidebook, you can upload that and we'll just take in all of that. If you have like internal SOPs or whatever, you can upload those documents and we'll kind of parse it and store that as information in what we call our knowledge hub, where you can like manually add things to the knowledge hub. So if it, you know, wasn't in your guidebook or whatever. So I think it will work out of the box with all the information that we have, but you can make it better if there's like
Got it.
some real specifics you need to get
Got
to.
it. Because it's interesting. I think about it, right? Like, so this company that Cabino's been in business since 2008. I've been here for 3 years ish. And I'm like, they're like, well, you could just simply upload all these documents. Documents. Who said anything about documents? What do you think? I got like 30 people working for you. But no, it's a good point. And I think it's one of those two that now that I'm becoming more experienced utilizing AI as a function within the business, I can see, I mean, even the best part, and I kind of laugh because there's some people that are just like, feet down, like I'm not gonna learn about this stuff. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
see the little speaker button, like just hit the speaker button, talk to it, tell it everything you want to talk about. It's gonna record that and it's gonna take it as if it's a document. And it's gonna trim out all your ahs and ums and everything you want to say that you're stumbling over. You change your mind, I was like, it'll figure it out. Like it's just that easy
Yeah.
to dump that information in. And people are just aghast. They can't figure that out. But that's
I want to
interesting.
mention Can I
Yeah, go
mention
for
one
it.
kind of story? So we hadn't really anticipated this, but like one of the really great things about AI is that it can take kind of the edge off of your voice if you need it to. And we've had so many customers. I know. So we actually have a voice to AI option, if you will, in our product. And we have so many examples where like a guest was maybe upset about something and they were kind of overreacting, and our host just pressed the voice thing and rattle off maybe like a not so well worded thing that they don't want to say, but the AI turns it for them and kind of takes the emotion out of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we have some people who posted on social media like what they actually said and what the AI like turned it into, and it was more professional and nice, and that's pretty funny. I love to see people use it in that way because there are times we're frustrated, right? And like it's hard to, especially if you're an independent host, I think because you feel dearly about your property. And maybe extra offended if like a guest has an issue. So that's just been kind of a really fun example of a way to use it.
That is funny. They did model that after me. Emily, I don't know if you knew that or not, but how I handle these tough calls. It's like, you know what, we're gonna throw a little we're gonna throw a little Hanson, Wisconsin on
Yeah,
that and just see how that handled it.
it's like a remove Yankee button,
That's right. Yeah, just
less
like
Janie.
it's like an eject button for the person on the other end of the line. Yeah, it doesn't work real well. I'm teasing. But there is something that I thought was really interesting when you were talking about pricing. When you told your story about dynamic pricing. This is something that I'm really interested in learning more about because it is a struggle for us every day. I'm blessed with a revenue manager that I work with, and she does a fabulous job. But I can see the constraints that she has are software driven. And it's
Hmm.
one of those where when you're using AI, because the software that we use is not AI driven, and it's one of those where if we don't know events, if we don't know things, I think we had a story, lunar eclipse, for example, as like we were one of the stopping points of the lunar eclipse. Suppose the Earth just happened to be randomly like an island part right over. Like, what? Really? And just happened to be there, right? So people were scrambling and we were getting calls from homeowners. They're just like, "What are you giving my property away for this?" And we're like, "It's a Wednesday. What are you talking about?" No, well, it's a lunar eclipse. The whole week should be booked. And we're like, "Oh my God." And then we looked it up, like, "Oh my God, we didn't know that. Oh, I can't believe we didn't know that." Well, honestly, who knows that stuff unless it pops up in your news feed, right? But it's just like, we're thinking like, man, would AI pick up something like the lunar eclipse coming over? Or is that something that it's just still too deep to figure out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it knows a lot more than we think it knows.
Yeah.
I mean, the things we tell it, right? It's like maybe we should be quiet. But yeah, with dynamic pricing, like as a specific example, like yes, it can pick up on like local events and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily need a calendar to do that, right? Or it doesn't need to browse the web to do that necessarily. It can just look at like your neighbors. What are they doing? Are they all booked up? There must be something going on. We should raise our prices. Or is nobody booked up? There must not be a lot going on. Maybe we should lower our prices. Or like everybody's booking at, this rate. Maybe we should up it. Like maybe we could do a little bit better. So,
Oh,
and
I
that's not,
see. So it's really doing like a comparative pricing. Like it's looking at, does the AI define who your competitors are? So if I've got a 4-bedroom luxury cabin, it's not like, does it find other 4-bedroom luxury cabins within 10 miles and then balance that out? Or how does it know who to look at?
That's actually been some feedback that we've received from our own customers. So Hospitable just launched our own included dynamic pricing in
Oh, okay.
Hospitable. For a couple of months ago, we'd still do partner with all the dynamic pricing providers in the market and love them. But what we heard from our customers is that they wanted something simple and they wanted it to just be native and hospitable because we saw like over 30% of our customers using nothing. And so we rolled out our own dynamic pricing included in all of our plans that is supposed to be simple, right? Because we've actually heard from some of the dynamic pricing providers that the more people log in and tweak it, the worse they do. And that's because not everybody's a revenue manager, right? And so
Right.
if you're not a
Yeah. It's ditch to ditch, right? You're just like too high, too low, too high, too
yeah,
low. You just keep moving back and forth. And, yeah,
yeah, exactly. So like our own dynamic pricing product is really geared to be super simple and give you the like simple controls that you need like as an independent host. Yeah, I totally think it could go in any direction forever and always improve. AI is changing every day, so why not?
yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting. That's cool to hear. I just know like, yeah, it's a pain point. And, like I look at Cabino, we're in an interesting market in Northern Rockies because it's not a ski market necessarily. We go a little bit further south than like Victor Driggs or Alpine, will be ski markety with like Grand Targhee or Jackson. But up further north, like it's interesting. It's really snow driven. weather event driven. So our actual booking windows, they fluctuate to the point that it's frustrating because you're just like, you can't forecast. So I can't make, like when I'm trying to do business development, I'm talking to homeowners and they're like, well, what do you think you're going to give me in January, February, March? And it's like, well, maybe if we get 500 inches of snow, you're going to get booked up. And if we get 100 inches of snow, you're not. Right. So it's like, it's tough to call, but it's funny because now it's like you're taking the sample size of all competition in the area and you're starting to balance that out. I think that's a really that's interesting approach. I like that.
And talking about revenue optimization too, like it's not just dynamic pricing. There's like so many other things you can explore. So one thing is upsells. Me as an independent host, I always took the opinion that I like shouldn't charge extra for early check-in or late checkout. I should just do it if it's possible and easy
Right.
for me. But I was actually helping the team who built our upsell product test it out. So I turned it on, and before I knew it, I was like making money. And I
Right.
was like, oh, I'll keep it on. So there's like upsells you could look into for sure. And then direct bookings, which seems off topic for this, but it's really not. Just having the ability for guests to book directly saves you and them so much on fees. And then you actually have that relationship directly with them. You can email them whatever you want. You can invite them back a year later. You can learn their birthday and give them 10% off. I visit again. Like there's so many other opportunities to optimize your revenue, not just dynamic pricing, that I think people should definitely be looking into.
Well, that's interesting. So how does that, and that's another question that's come up. So Hospitable does websites and I know like Streamline, right? So they've got BizCore and I know Track's got their company. I'd say like LMPM and LiveRes. I don't know, they're not any longer, I guess they're phasing out. But when I look at it, what does it take to get, I mean, when I just think of the lift, right? So we upgraded our website 23, 24. It was a huge lift. And I'm going, man, if I were building out my website, that would be kind of a tougher deal. So how do you guys approach that with a one property, two property manager?
Yeah. I mean, we've totally productized it. So it's like a button in Hospitable. So
Okay.
our goal is really to de risk direct bookings for hosts who have not yet explored that possibility. And here's what I mean by that. So if you're getting a guest on Airbnb or Vrbo or booking.com, there's a certain like level of security you have because like those other platforms are processing your payments, like they're doing something maybe to vet your guest. They have their own like damage protection things that they offer you. And so you feel kind of good about like welcoming a stranger into your home because they're backed by a booking platform, right? But with direct booking, you have none of that. And so a lot of people don't want to start because they start thinking like, well, how do I vet these guests? Like, what if they destroy my place? Like all this stuff, right? How do I even take payment? And so our direct booking product is doing all of that for you without you having to figure out all of those pieces. So you can literally like in under a couple of minutes have a direct booking site that's created for you. We offer a handful of templates so you can find something that kind of matches your vibe. And then we also take or give you the option anyways for us to be the payment processor. So we'll take the payment from the guest, we'll pay you out just like you would with Airbnb, so it feels the same to you. That also means we're protecting you from chargebacks. So, which
Right.
can be very damaging to hosts just starting out. If I have a $5,000 booking and the guest calls their credit card and says they didn't make it, but they did, we're also verifying the guests for you. We're checking their ID. We're making sure that they're legit, and
Right.
we have damage protection. So, like all of those things that were once risky for hosts, like we're taking on that risk ourselves as a company and handling that for you so that you can just get started with your direct booking business. And like you mentioned your company, you mentioned having 60 something properties. Like you guys like have the means to go build a custom site and maybe at that point you should. But for hosts who just have a handful of properties, like I would really recommend against spending money on a big fancy custom site before you've ever had a direct booking. Like
So do you
you
guys
should
do
probably.
all the SEO and all of the, like if somebody wants to do PPC, is that all tied back into that site or do you have to bring on another digital media person for that?
So there is like a marketing aspect which we're not yet handling. So ours is really focused around like processing the actual bookings and then automating it all from there. But yeah, you as the host have to direct the traffic somehow. We do
Absolutely.
automatically list you on Google Vacation Rentals, so that definitely helps. But that definitely becomes the next focus for our hosts, right? Like get the site up, figure out how to get people there. And we do have a lot of great partners too who do only that, who can
Yeah.
then kind of focus on the SEO side of things as well. But
Yeah.
again, like until you've actually taken direct bookings, like investing money and time into that, you just want to make sure you can do it right before.
Yeah, I mean, I can't highlight that enough. That's been my what would I say, white whale that I'm chasing. No, maybe that's not right because I am actually catching a lot of. I really focus my energy on direct book. I mean, that's really like the core of what I'm trying to do, mainly because the quality of guest I think is significantly higher than what we're seeing coming through the OTAs. And not only that, but it's just like the loyalty of the guest is distinct. Like if they've come through our direct booking means the relationship is built with us as a property manager, not with the OTA. And so by having us have that relationship, it's very important. I can't highlight it enough to people coming into the industry. It's really important. So it's funny. I had a couple other questions that I was just laid out, and I'm trying to think through what the best way to ask these questions are. Right. So we talk about presentation. So you guys are you building the listings for the property managers? Are you building them out, getting the photography, building the content, or is that still sitting with the property manager to do that?
Yeah, we do not do that. The owner or the property manager needs to create their own listings. But I will say, like, we do have some features that help with this, but it's not what you'd think. I think everybody says like have good photos, like nice furniture. And yeah, like we totally should. But also think about what your listing actually looks like to a prospective guest. And one of the ways that we help automate that is by replying to all of the reviews. I think that is huge and really overlooked. I think every host should be replying to every single review.
Yeah.
It's opportunity to address the guests and thank them for their stay and maybe like reply to something specific they mentioned and just yeah, use that as an opportunity to remind them of like who you are and of your brand. If you're sly, you can, say the name of your property management company. So maybe they look you up next time and go book direct, whatever it may be. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. And if you're looking at two Airbnb listing and one has the host replying personally to every single review and the other one doesn't, like I think it's clear who cares more or guests think
Right.
of it that way. So I think that's one thing I would recommend everybody do. And in Hospitable, we automate that. We use AI for that as well, so that we're, addressing the guest personally, and it looks very personal. But even if you're not using something that automates that, like going in and taking a couple seconds to do it yourself, I think can make a huge difference.
Well, that makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. Other things that I'm just curious about. So we talk about the tech stack. And so you got to remember, like, well, you don't know. You wouldn't remember because I never told you this. I don't usually tell people this, but I used to be Six Sigma certified. So when I think about like automation, right? Automation is usually the last step in the process, right? So we talk about things like outsourcing, right? Outsourcing is, finding a lower cost way is part of process improvement. So when I think of that, and I'm going, a lower cost of labor outsourcing. I know for Cabino, I've been blessed with two awesome staff members in the Philippines that I didn't go through. I found them, but I didn't go through any kind of like staffing agency. I had a connection there and I met a couple really awesome people who introduced me. And we've been very, very lucky with these folks. But when it comes down to outsourcing, like how does Hospitable balance cleaning, maintenance, marketing, call center, customer support, and then balance the outsourcing piece with it? Do you need like, kind of different technology for outsourcers to jump in, or how does that work?
No, I mean, we have plenty of customers who've outsourced certain aspects of our business and we allow them to add them to their account and whatever they can do, whatever it is that they need to do. That said, like obviously there are things you have to find yourself outsourcing one day, especially when you reach a certain size, like starting with cleaning and maintenance, like unless you want to do that all your life, that's going to have to be something you outsource. I guess like when we're talking to our customers, we just kind of recommend like look at the technology first and consider that before you go bringing a human onto your team. We advocate for like bringing humans onto your team when you need it, but there's a lot of stuff that computers are really really good at, like basic bookkeeping, accounting. We already talked about paying someone to build a fancy site for you. Like no, we can get the simple one off the ground. So yeah, I would
So
say, like
do you guys have technology similar to like Easy or Breezeway? Like Does it work back with cleaners and maintenance in the same way, or do you still need that extra connection to an easy or a breezeway?
I don't know when this is going to go live, but I would suggest you watch our next town hall on Wednesday.
All right. There seems to be something amiss or something in the mix, not a miss, but something in the mix. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Right.
So we're gonna go with maybe.
We're going to go with maybe. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, yes.
That's right. Okay. Okay. Well, good. No, but that's awesome because it's one of those where, I know, like, again, we're a Streamline shop. So we've seen, Streamline has gone through, and so have so many of the other property management systems that have been around for a long period of time, that they are going through evolutions, right? So they're bringing in certain functions and they're automating those functions. And of course, we're an easy shop. We've been an easy shop for years now. And we're at that point now that we're evolving. We've been around as long as we have, and I'm kind of jealous of some of these newer property managers that are coming in and they're starting with this stuff. And they can come in and say, I'm going to go hospitable and I'm going to get this whole swath of functionality. Whereas from us, we're kind of piecemealed in some of these things, and it's so ingrained, it's hard to break, it's hard to get out of that. So it's just an interesting dynamic when I listen to all the cool things that you guys are putting together, and I'm kind of jealous in that regard, because I think it provides a lot of opportunity for people to focus on things that really, and I say this with light tone, but with what matters, which is simply bringing in more money, right? Like, I can focus on marketing. I can focus on selling. I can focus on, if I want to grow, I can focus on my homeowner acquisition. I'm not worried about whether, Bobby showed up to clean the property or not. Like, I can see that in my back end technology. Awesome. We're nearing that point in the show where we are going to ask a final question, and then essentially we'll go from there, and wish everybody a great day. And I really appreciate your time on a Friday. I know it's like you got plenty of other things that you could be doing right now. But the last question, and I know now that we just led into it with, just wait and see, the future of hosting. This is the big enchilada question. Looking ahead, do you think the rise of automation and smart tools will allow solo hosts to thrive long term, or will consolidation continue to pressure independence? I did not write that question. That's way too smart for me, but you get the point. Like, what do you think the future holds? What's it looking like?
It's really intense. I have no idea what the future holds, but I do know that no, I think independent hosts are here to stay, and not just here to stay. I think they're totally taking over. We are already seeing independent hosts, solo hosts grow well beyond what they ever envisioned, simply because they can now. Maybe a couple of years ago they couldn't, and now they can. So those tools that used to only be available to large property management companies are now accessible to everybody. They can be affordable, and it's really unlocking incredible opportunities. So we're seeing some of our customers who came to us with one property grow on accident 30,
Right.
40, 50 properties later, and they're really, really killing it.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know what? I really do appreciate you joining us, Emily, and I'm looking forward to when our paths cross again. I am going to be back at the VRNation conference. I don't know if I'll be back, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make any other conferences before the end of the year, given that my kids aren't littles anymore. My kids are old, and they're wrapping up their final college careers, so I have to focus some energy there. So I'm not going to be as much on the conference circuit. But regardless, I look forward to when you and I can meet in person and hang out again.
Thanks. This was so fun. Is it okay if I share a discount code with you guys? I have one.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we have a discount code to share with you guys. It will offer you 25% off for your first 3 months of Hospitable. But even before that, you get a free 2-week trial. You don't even have to enter a credit card to try it out. So if you're curious, please try it out. You can get the link in the description.
Awesome. That's great. Emily, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and I guess we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jamie.
Welcome y'all to the VRNation Station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations. From management tips to the latest creation, join us each week for some sparkle and conversation. VRNation Station, tune in and feel the thrill. We're talking